that I wouldn't. I feel good. I knew that I wouldn't. So good, so good. I got you.
Welcome to Gardening 101. Here we're going to be talking about the most easy and effective way to grow our own nutritious food. And when talking about gardening, one of the things that we all can do in a very small area of our lawn, of our yard, is grow really nutritious fresh fruits, vegetables, herbs, and leafy greens. We are only as healthy as the healthy food that we put in our body, and our healthy food is only as healthy and nutrient dense as the soil that it's grown in. So a great thing that we can do to be in control of our own health is to grow our own very healthy food. So much of the food that comes to our shelves at our grocery stores, the place that we buy it from, is oftentimes flown to us using non-renewable fossil fuels, polluting the environment, and oftentimes, if it's not organic, is laden with chemical fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, larvicides, and other chemical growing agents to make it actually grow to look big and vibrant. When you're growing food in soil, in healthy soil, you really only need 3 minerals, and this is what a lot of agrochemical firms focus on, and that is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, or NPK. When people are growing food that feeds us and our families, many times they're using chemical fertilizers that only focus on these 3 nutrients. So as a result, we only have phosphorus, potassium, and nitrogen in the soil. We're very deficient in all other minerals and trace minerals and nutrients that are essential to sustain human life. When we're growing our own healthy organic foods in our own gardens, we are responsible, and we can be responsible for nutrient-dense, healthy, mineral-rich soil, and as a result, creating healthy, nutrient-dense human bodies, right? So, in order to gain vibrant health, we want to be eating vibrant, healthy, living food, fresh fruits and vegetables. So, if we don't have a yard, if you don't have a house, if you don't have any spot of land, we can also equally do this just as easily in our own kitchen. So I also want to talk about kitchen gardening and how easy it is to grow things like sprouts, sprouted foods, microgreens, and just fresh herbs and vegetables that can be grown in a small area of a porch or a patio or even on your windowsills. So what can we do in our own homes? Kitchen gardening is so incredibly easy because really all we need is small amounts of soil, jars, mesh lids, and a small amount of nuts, seeds, grains, beans, legumes, or sprouting seeds. The first time that we ever started using a lot of sprouting in North America was actually during the Great Depression, when there was a fear there was going to be a nutritional deficiency, specifically a protein deficiency in Americans. So Dr. Colin McKay of Cornell University was actually commissioned to do an entire sprouting and kitchen gardening project, making booklets for each individual Americans that they knew how to grow their own food in their own homes using something simple as small pots and jars, mesh lids, and cheesecloth. Well, what ended up happening is after the Great Depression, when there was no more of this fear of the protein deficiency or the nutritional deficiency in North America, the idea of kitchen gardening and sprouting ended up going to the wayside and people did not continue to do it. So now we're still regularly dependent on our grocery stores or other farmers to supply the food for us. Furthermore, a book was written called Sprouted by Dr. Ann Wigmore, and what she wrote in there was that anytime that we sprout our own food, our own nuts and seeds, our own grains, our own legumes, our beans, we're actually magnifying the nutritional profile of that food anywhere from 100 to 400 times what it would be if it was its own cooked counterpart, right? So we're making just general sprouts in our kitchen, doing kitchen gardening. All we really need is some seeds and a jar, a rubber band, and a piece of cloth. Right here what I have is actually lentils. Lentils are one of the easiest beans to sprout. Many people find them very delicious. They're very popular in a lot of Middle Eastern and Indian dishes. Very high protein food, very high mineral dense food, very high in iron, specifically for anyone who is ever suffering from iron deficiency or anemia. And all you really need to do is you put about 3/4 of the jar of your lentils. You're going to pour water into them enough to cover the lentils so that you can actually soak them. You want to let them sit for about 8 to 10 hours. After they have completely soaked or satiated with water, also called germinated, you're then going to put your cheesecloth on there. So now you're able to hold all of your lentils in there. You're going to pour all that water right back out. And then now you just want to let that sit on the counter right there, and you're going to rinse it every 12 hours. So filling it back up with water, preferably fresh water, purified water, pour it all the way back out, put it right back there on the counter or on your refrigerator until you get a little tail, a little sprout coming out. Now, many of us, when we go to the grocery store, there's sprouts and sprouted foods in the grocery section. We can go to a lot of different Asian food restaurants, and regularly different varieties of bean sprouts are part of the menu. This is nothing that is strange to us. We see this on a regular basis, but not a lot of us are empowered to make this by ourselves in our own home. Now, when it comes to our grains, our whole grains, things like your whole wheat, your rye, your quinoa, your buckwheat, people often eat them in cooked form. They eat them in actually very over-processed, heated, baked, ground up form, and as a result, we're losing a lot of the nutritional profile of that food by all the cooking and processing that goes into it. So quinoa, which is an incredibly rich, it's actually a seed, it's considered a pseudo grain. It's not actually a real grain, but very high in complex carbohydrates, high in fiber, very high in protein, and when we eat this as a sprouted food on our cereals, in our granolas, in our power bars, even on our salads, we are actually eating a significantly healthier, more nutritious food than when we cook it. So what I'm gonna do with my sprouted quinoa, or my quinoa, excuse me, I'm gonna fill this up with water right here. The excellent and convenient thing about quinoa is that you only have to let it sit for 2 hours before it is completely germinated. Then you can rinse out that water and it is ready to sprout. So here I would put my rubber band over the mesh lid. 2 hours later, I would pour all that water out, and then I'm just gonna let this sit on its side, allowing that quinoa to slowly grow its little tail or little root to come out, and literally within about 24 hours, I'm gonna have regular, healthy quinoa sprouts. It's very delicious. It has a slightly sweet and nutty flavor to it. Most of the sprouts are exactly that. They're actually much more flavorful, enjoyable ways to eat these foods, but of course with much, much more nutrition on there. Now, if I want to do the same thing like this, but grow actually a type of microgreen, I could grow something that we buy in the stores on a regular basis. We see them on salads and see them on sandwiches, and that is alfalfa sprouts. Now, the difference with an alfalfa sprout, now this is going into the category of microgreens, I do the same process that I did right here with the jar, but once the alfalfa sprouts, that is when you want to expose it to sunlight so it can get chlorophyll and it becomes actually a green sprout right there. You can do this with alfalfa sprouts, or alfalfa seeds, I should say, right, to turn into alfalfa sprouts. Do it with broccoli seeds, which become broccoli sprouts. Cabbage seeds become cabbage sprouts. Radish seeds become radish sprouts. You can do this with so many different nutritious seeds that turn into really delicious, really vibrant green sprouts. But the most important thing when you are growing these microgreens in your jars is to get it into sunlight for even about 15 minutes to activate that chlorophyll, and it becomes exponentially more nutritious for you right there. So moving on to a different variety of plant or microgreen that we can grow in our own homes is any small plastic container that you might get from, for example, when you do buy something like alfalfa sprouts, or if you buy berries, strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, anything that you're buying in these small little containers, you can recycle them as planters. You can grow herbs in them, you can grow greens in them, or right here, which looks like grass. Well, it is grass, in fact, but it's actually wheatgrass. Wheatgrass is very popular in health food stores. It's something you juice. You usually get a small shot of it, and it ends up being one of the highest concentrations of chlorophyll, of iron, of protein, of vitamin A, of vitamin C, a huge immunity booster, very cleansing and detoxifying, an excellent blood builder as well. Growing our own wheatgrass is incredibly simple, and we can do it in our own homes, and we can just cut big pieces of this and put it in our juicer, put it in our smoothies. We can get our own doses of nutrient-rich chlorophyll and wheatgrass. And essentially all I did with this is I put about 2 inches of organic soil in the bottom of it. You can buy that soil from any of your home and garden centers, preferably get an organic variety. And then I soaked the wheat berries, or the seeds of a wheat plant. You can buy these in bulk at almost any of your health food stores or even your conventional grocery stores. Soaked them for about 6 hours, and then I just laid them on top of the soil and let them sit. I usually put a cover on top of them to keep the moisture in, and what ends up happening is within about 8 to 12 hours, they grow a sprout, just like your lentil and your quinoa sprouts that we talked about, but it becomes a root that goes right into the soil, and then boom, it grows up. We've probably all grown grass before when growing lawns, but how often have we thought about how effective we could use that exact same procedure to grow our own food? You can also do that with things like pea shoots to create pea sprouts. You can do it with sunflower seeds to create sunflower greens. You can do it with buckwheat to create buckwheat greens, or buckwheat lettuce as they call it. The possibilities are really endless when it comes to what you kind of want to grow in your own house, and all you really need is some seeds, some soil, some water, and some sunlight. Now moving on to actually much more popular and conventional edibles. Right here I have a sage plant, right here I have a basil plant, right? Very common household herbs. Here I actually have a green pepper plant that I'm growing in a container that's not much bigger than something that you probably buy yogurt or cottage cheese in right there. We can grow a lot of fresh, healthy food in quite small containers that can fit in a windowsill or even on a front or a back porch right there. Herbs, a lot of the herbs that we typically think of and use in our kitchens for culinary purposes, sage, basil, thyme, rosemary, oregano, many of them were actually used as medicinal foods long before they were ever utilized as these culinary spices or flavor enhancers, because they are some of the most nutritious foods that we can be consuming on a regular basis. They address all kinds of illnesses, from high blood pressure to high cholesterol to heart conditions to even things like diabetes, depression, focus, mental health, and clarity right there. So consuming as much of our fresh herbs as we possibly can is not only delicious and a great way to enhance the flavor of our food, but it's also a great way to boost the health of our bodies. Foods like your zucchinis, like your cucumbers, like your tomatoes, like a lot of your hot peppers as well as your simple bell peppers can actually be grown in quite small containers, and they actually will produce a vegetable or a fruit on them when you are growing them, even when they are just on your windowsill or on your porch in your back patio right there. If you have a lawn, or if you have a parking space, a parking lot for example, if you have something where you'd like to grow a garden there, but you're not quite sure how you can do that, because you would need a rototiller to dig up the grass or the concrete that's already there, and then you would need the soil to put on there, and you would need all of the fixins. There's a very popular way of turning almost anything into a garden, and it's a style of gardening called lasagna gardening. It's quite a funny title, but what you essentially do is you can take things like huge sheets of cardboard, cover up any surface you have that you want to grow a garden in, and then just dump your nutrient-dense, healthy, organic topsoil right on top of that and begin planting and starting your process right there. I know people who have went through so much effort trying to remove huge amounts of grass, getting a sod cutter to roll up the sod, roll up the grass, and just to create an area that might be only about 4 by 6 feet to start a small garden, where literally all they would have had to have done was taken old boxes, refrigerator boxes, moving boxes, who knows what, laid out the carpet, the cardboard over their grass, and then just started right on top of their fresh and new, putting about 1 foot to 2 feet of fresh new soil on there, and then just going and buying simple seeds or seedlings or small plants from your local home and garden center and planting them right in there, and voila, then you end up having gardening in your own home right there. So we have multiple ways that we can be in charge of our own nutrient sources and our own food. Living in Wisconsin, of course, we have to confront the reality that we do only have a limited growing season, and we do have winter about 4 months, 4 to 6 months out of the year, it can seem sometimes, right? So that's where kitchen gardening, microgreens, and growing our own sprouts and wheat grasses and herbs in plants can be a really, really great way for us to keep ourselves nutrient balanced, satiated, healthy, vibrant, and alive throughout the seasons.
But I got you.